Hello there. This is my third video, and normally you've heard me do a couple of videos on like progressive rock and stuff, but I like a lot of different genres of music. I mean, I like classical, I like easy listening, I like quite a few different things. Regular classic rock. You may see me do a video on Henry Mancini one day. But I thought I'd do something a little bit different today. I'm going to talk about a group called the Shaggs. Now, the Shaggs are a group that comprised of three sisters. Uh, Sometimes there was a fourth sister who played along with them, but generally it was three sisters. They cut an album in 1969 called Philosophy of the World. Now, if a person has this album in their collection, I guarantee you there's nothing else like it in their collection. The album is played not very competently. It's not very competently played. The instruments are kind of out of tune. They really didn't know what they were doing as to a degree that it's surprising that they were actually able to get an album made. Okay, but the story of their formation is pretty interesting. Anyway, the three sisters is Helen Wiggins, Betty Wiggins, and Dorothy Wiggins, known commonly as Dot Wiggins. Their dad, whose name was Austin Wiggins, decided to put them together as a band. And the reason he did this is because his mom, when he was younger, was like a palm reader, predict the future type thing. And she predicted that he would marry a strawberry blonde woman, have two sons, and several daughters. And the daughters would grow up to become famous musicians. Okay, well, lo and behold, he did have two sons, and he did have four daughters. So since that part of his prediction panned out, and I don't know, maybe marrying the strawberry blonde might have been something that he did kind of consciously, but he decided that since these other parts of his mom's prediction came true, that he would make the rest of it come true. So he took his daughters out of school, homeschooled them, and bought them some rather inexpensive instruments, and decided to make them become musicians. So they weren't really too interested in this. They didn't really feel like they'd be able to master the instruments. But he was forcing them to practice. He was a little bit of a dictator to them. But he locked them away basically and practiced on their instruments for hours at a time, probably close to a daily basis. And this was all like in the 1967, 68. By 1969, he decided to have them cut an album. Well, they still really didn't know what they were doing very much. So he took out there, and they, producers or whatever, one of them told him, say, look, these people aren't ready to make an album. But his theory was he wanted to strike while it was hot. They had played live a little bit, and they got booed and stuff, just like you might expect. Got cans thrown at them and different things, which obviously wasn't going to make them that much interested in being musicians. But somehow he was able to get them to record an album. And when the album came out, Philosophy of the World, it had 12 songs. And interesting enough, they were all self-penned songs. They were all songs that they wrote themselves. There was no covers on that album. And it came out in 1969, and like I said, it's pretty incompetently played. But as time went on, their dad died, and they disbanded. They just said they weren't interested in doing it anymore. I mean, there was still some stuff they had done a few years later before he died, where they actually sounded a little bit tighter. I mean, they were never professional. But Philosophy of the World was their only true studio album. This is it. Has 12 songs. And one of the most well-known songs to people who listen to the Shaggs is called My Pal Foot Foot. it's a story of a cat they had that disappeared, and the cat actually was a double amputee. It only had 2 feet, hence I guess the name Foot. So they they decided to give the song a happy ending, uh, even though in reality Foot was never seen again. They don't know whatever happened to him. So Foot also, My Pal Foot is also probably the least competent sounding song on the record. But years later, I want to say like around the 90s, a DJ decided to play some of their albums, or I mean some of their songs I should say, and they kind of gotten a cult following. And two musicians, Frank Zappa and Kurt Cobain, were big fans of them. In fact, Frank Zappa felt they were better than the Beatles. At least he said that. And that they were one of his favorite bands. And Kurt Cobain said that Philosophy of the World was one of his favorite albums, like the 5th favorite album that he enjoyed. So, you know, with this era of garage rock and outsider rock becoming even more popular, the primitive sound of the album became quite appealing to a lot of people. So in a strange way, the prediction of them becoming famous, I mean, maybe not a household name, but they did become kind of famous. And in the 2000s, they actually performed live, and people, you know, I mean, they were in their 60s, 70s maybe, people would request My Pal Foot. And so they actually became kind of, I guess they kind of embraced it a little bit. So anyway, like I said, Philosophy of the World was their only true studio album. However, they did have recordings that were never put together as a regular studio album, but they did kit them together and they put out this compilation album called the Shaggs' Own Thing. Now, there are some covers on this. Yesterday Once More by the Carpenters, an instrumental called Wheels by the String Along, which actually doesn't sound bad at all. It actually sounds pretty good. Was it, there's one, let's see, I Love by Tom T. Hall, and there's a live recorded track called Gimme That Ding, and there's a track with their dad on it. The title track, the Shaggs' Own Thing, actually has Austin Wiggins doing a kind of a rap thing, and I believe his nephew or somebody. So there's two people on it that aren't a normal member of the band. So this album actually is a little more competent. It's not professional by any means, but it's competent enough that makes you think that if they had actually stuck with it, they probably would have become a pretty confident band. There's also this 45 with a version of Missouri Waltz and Sweet Maria on it. And that is pretty much everything the Shaggs have out there. I believe maybe it was Dot Wiggins did her own studio album, which I don't have. But I just thought that their story was pretty interesting, and that you might enjoy hearing a little bit about it. Yeah, it's kind of weird what puts bands together and stuff, and I just thought that was a pretty interesting story. Also, the cat you see me holding at the beginning is one of my two cats, and that cat's name is Foot, named after that song. So, I mean, they're interesting. I thought they were interesting. I thought you might like to hear a little bit about this kind of incompetent band that kind of became famous for that very reason. So I hope you enjoyed this video. If you did, give it a thumbs up, and we'll see you on another video soon. Thank you.